Chapter 1267. After washing the grapes, Elvis asked someone to send the grapes back to the stone castle, while he handed Gu Meng Meng over to Leah. He went to the forest to find a tree suitable for making wooden barrels to store wine. Leah smiled the entire time, ignoring Gregory's gaze that was glued to Gu Meng Meng. He was not jealous at all, as if he did not care at all. The stone castle was the residence of the two Beast Kings and the Ninth Highness, so outsiders were not allowed to enter. So after washing the grapes, other than those who helped to carry the grapes, the rest of the tribesmen returned to their own homes. Only Gu Meng Meng, Leah, Gregory, Oriton, and Sandy's family were left in the stone castle. Gu Meng Meng divided the grapes into two big basins, one for Sandy to bring back to eat, while asking Leah to keep the other for them to eat. Then, she placed the remaining grapes in the stone basin and called the little snakes over to grind the fruits in a mud like last year. Sandy was intrigued and chased after Gu Meng Meng with questions, while Gu Meng Meng answered all of them patiently. It was only when Elvis returned with his men, carrying the newly made wooden pail and the temporarily sealed stone basin's lid, that Sandy could finally relax. She tugged at Gu Meng Meng and said, "The way that fellow looked at you is not quite right." Gu Meng Meng looked over, and Gregory immediately averted her gaze. He turned his head stiffly and looked a little suspicious, but Gu Meng Meng did not think too much about it. After all, he had made it clear from the start that he did not fancy her, so he would not slap her in the face like this, right? Sandy saw that Gu Meng Meng was not paying attention and tooted. She poked Leah again and said, "That Birdman is powerful and has a unique look. He is on a different path from you and Elvis. If Gu Meng Meng accepts him, you might fall out of favor." Leah just smiled and said nonchalantly, "What else can I do? My Gu Meng Meng is so outstanding, everyone will definitely love her. If I guard against everyone, then I will be filled with love rivals." Sandy raised her eyebrows, thinking to herself, did Lee's brain get squeezed through a door? Why did he suddenly change his mind? Wasn't it time to use her as a love rival to scare her? What did he say the last time? He wanted her to thank him for not being a male, or else he would definitely kill her to prevent her from fighting with him for love. Why are you pretending to be generous now? Leah seemed to have seen through Sandy's thoughts and added, "Moreover, Gregory will only stay here for a month. After a month, he will return to the Moda Mountains. Even if he mates with Meng Meng now, they can only be lovers for about 10 days. As for me, as long as Meng Meng is happy, I can endure anything. So, if Meng Meng wants to accept him, I can endure it for about 10 days. Grace clenched his fists at Leia's words. His chest felt stifled and uncomfortable, but he couldn't tell the reason. He would leave in 10 days. This was something he had said himself. He was the leader of the vulture race. He had come down to fulfill the marriage agreement, but the heart of the desert was now in the hands of a male. This marriage agreement could not be fulfilled, so he had no reason to stay. He had to return to the Moda Mountains to continue protecting the vulture tribe's sacred grounds. He probably wouldn't come down from the mountain ever again. So, I won't be able to see her after 10 days. She was so bright and beautiful. She was so decisive. 10 days later, would they never see each other again? What was up with this uncomfortable feeling all over his body? Grace's brows were tightly knitted together. He couldn't explain the strange feeling in his body. Perhaps he had left the mountain for too long and was not used to it. 10 days. He would return after 10 days. Chapter 1268. Gregory. Gu Meng Meng smiled and said, "Don't listen to Lee's nonsense. They are just joking." Gu Meng Meng thought that Gregory's expression was not good, because Leah had gone overboard with his joke. After all, to the males in the beast world, mating was a sacred thing and should not be used as a joke. Gregory's face was expressionless, but his eyes dimmed. He nodded and said, "I know. All right, what is the bird you brought back previously? The one with beautiful feathers." Gu Meng Meng changed the topic to avoid awkwardness. Gregory thought for a while and said, "Melody." Gu Meng Meng nodded furiously and said, Yes, that's it. Is it hard to catch that bird?" Gregory shook his head and said, "Not hard. It was just that the habitat of that bird was rather far away, and they happened to pass by this area when they were migrating previously, so Gregory caught 2 for Gu Meng Meng to try. Then, can you catch a few more? I like the feathers of that bird and want to make a fan with feathers. It would definitely look really good. Gu Meng Meng had been thinking about it for a few days. She had tidied up the feathers of the 2 Melody previously, but it was not enough to make a big fan with feathers. Gregory nodded and said, "All right." To catch a Melody, Gregory would need to fly at full speed for half a day without stopping. A round trip would take an entire day. If he could catch 2 at once, he would need to make a few rounds to catch enough for her to make a fan. That was good too. He would not have to keep looking at her when he helped her catch a Melody. Perhaps he would not feel so strange if he looked at her less. With that, Gregory spread his wings and flew away. Gu Meng Meng stood at the same spot and reached out her hand to Kong. Her sentence, "go after eating," turned into a mumble. She shook her head helplessly and said, "He's still an impatient person. Forget it. Gregory is so powerful, he won't let himself be hungry." Gu Meng Meng didn't think too much about it and just turned around to play with Sandy. She said that when the feather fans were ready, they would each have one so that they could use the fans to fan themselves during the hot rainy season and dry season. There was no need to use the elephant ear leaves anymore. Leah looked at Gregory, who had flown far away, with a faint smile on his lips. Meanwhile, Gregory, who was soaring in the sky, kept replaying Lee's unintentional joke in his mind. Even if they mated now, they could only be a loving couple for 10 days. This sentence was like a spell, lingering in Grace's mind endlessly. Distraught, he rushed into the Melody's resting place and easily grabbed 2 Melody with his claws that were as sharp and hard as steel. After circling around, he flew back towards Sauter like an arrow released from a bow. When he came back, it was already noon the next day. Gu Meng Meng was taking an afternoon nap, and Gregory had mixed feelings about not seeing her. He didn't know why he seemed to be afraid to see her. When he heard that she was taking a nap, he was relieved, but the sense of loss came one after another, overwhelming him. Chapter 1269. 9 days, Gregory's heart stopped for a moment, as if something sharp had pierced his heart. The pain made it hard for him to breathe, and he frowned instinctively. Without saying a word, he spread his wings and flew towards the habitat of the Melody. During the flight, he was in a state of absent-mindedness, flying based on his instincts. His mind kept replaying the countdown that Leah had accidentally mentioned. 9 days, there were only 9 days left. Could that feather fan be completed? If only it could, she was so looking forward to it. What expression would she have when it was completed? Would that pair of clear eyes be sparkling? Would she smile like a child? If he was the one who caught all the Melody for her, then her smile, would a part of it belong to him? With that thought in mind, Gregory returned to the stone castle of Sauter on the morning of the 8th day of the countdown. He ignored the fact that he had repeatedly broken his flight limit to fly back. He was afraid that he would find out that he wanted to see her earlier. He was afraid that she would be taking an afternoon nap when he came back. He was afraid that he wanted to see her. He wanted to see her like crazy. Gregory, you don't look too good." Gu Meng Meng looked at Gregory, who was carrying 2 Melody in his hands, and was a little confused. "I haven't seen you for 2 days. Where did you go?" Gu Meng Meng still did not know that the Melody was very far away. Gregory would need to fly for a day and a night to catch these 2 birds. Nothing much. Gregory handed Melody over to Leah and subconsciously walked to the water bucket to look at himself in the water. His complexion was really terrible. The vultures were not weak birds. It was normal for them to not sleep for a few days and nights. But he had only flown for 2 days, and he was already so haggard. The problem was not the lack of rest or food. The anxiety and uneasiness in his heart was the real culprit. "I'll leave first." No matter what, Gregory still did not want Gu Meng Meng to see him in such a pathetic state. Since you're already here, let's have a meal together." Gu Meng Meng called out to Gregory. Gregory pursed his lips. He felt as if he was fighting with himself. He longed to look at her one more time, but he was afraid that his current sorry state would ruin his image in her heart. So he hesitated and didn't move forward. Leah pushed Gregory lightly and said, Oriton always eats with us every time he brings back prey. If you don't eat, we won't dare to accept your melody in the future. It'll look like we're taking advantage of you. All right. Gregory lowered his head. A hint of loneliness flashed across his eyes. He was no different from Oriton. They were just people who shared a meal and provided prey. She only had her two partners in her eyes, so why would she care about his image? What was this sour and oppressive feeling? They had clearly said that they didn't like each other when they first met. She carried out her words. But what about him? When did it start to waver? At the dining table, Gu Mingming used her chopsticks to poke at the meat in her bowl, her face full of worry. Gregory wanted to ask her what was wrong, but he clenched his fists and could not open his mouth. He was in no position to ask about her thoughts, was he? But why did he care so much about it? Chapter 1270. This joking sentence made Gregory tense up, and he lost control of his expression in an instant. He stared at Gu Mingming with widened eyes, and his heart was beating so fast that it felt like it was going to jump out of his throat. The sound of his heartbeat was deafening. Gu Mingming had been poking the meat in her bowl with her head lowered all along. She did not even look up, so she did not know how exaggerated Gregory's expression was. She just shook her head lightly and said, "The rainy season has been going on for almost a month. Usually at this time, little shit should have arrived long ago." In an instant, Gregory's state of mind had changed from the scorching heat of the Mecca Desert to the bitter cold of the Moda Mountains. His eyelids were extremely heavy, and he could not help but lower his head. His gaze finally locked onto the bowl in front of him. It was so empty that there was no color in it. She only shook her head lightly. Why did he feel as if the Moda Mountains were collapsing in front of him and the ground was shaking? She had already said that she did not like him. 8 days later, he would leave this place and return to the Moda Mountains, never to see her again. He knew everything, but he could not control his anticipation, hoping that she would nod and say that she could not bear to part with him, that she hoped he would stay. But so what if she said that? He would not stay. The one who was engaged to the vulture tribe was the female who inherited the heart of the desert. But Gu Mingming clearly did not have the heart of the desert, and the one with the heart of the desert was not a female. Wasn't he destined to be alone for the rest of his life? Since that was the case, it was a better outcome for her not to like him. His uncontrollable heart must have been because he had been down the mountain for too long. The climate here was different from the top of the mountain. It was all right. They would return to the Moda Mountains in 8 days. By then, without Gu Mingming, his life would return to its previous peacefulness. But how did he survive on the Moda Mountains in the past? Why was it that he could not recall it more and more recently? Elvis and Leah took in all of Gregory's expressions and gave each other a faint smile of mutual understanding. Elvis hugged Gu Mingming's shoulders and said, "If you want to see him, I will send someone to the Snake King Valley to look for him." Gu Mingming shook her head and said, "Little shit is not coming. It must be because he is afraid of me. I don't want to force him. Seeing him trembling in fear in front of me makes me very sad." Gu Mingming looked up at Elvis and said, "But I miss him very much. I always feel that something is missing when little shit is not around Tiske. I haven't hit him for a long time. My hands are itching." Elvis pinched Gu Mingming's little face and said, "Hit me. I'm a beast king now. I'm more resistant than him." Gu Mingming pouted and shook her head, saying, "You didn't even retaliate. I hit you. That's not called fighting. That's called one-sided abuse. It's domestic violence." "No." Elvis sighed, and his gaze swept across everyone present, finally landing on Gregory. "Why don't you beat him up? Although it's only a third-level beast, it's from the Moda Mountains after all. It's much stronger than an ordinary third-level beast, and looks like it can take a beating." Gu Mingming followed Elvis's gaze and landed on Gregory's face. Then she shook her head and said, "I still want to beat little shit up." Gu Mingming lowered her head and continued poking at the meat in her bowl, mumbling, "Little shit won't hide from me forever, right?" Chapter 1271. The meal ended abruptly because Gu Mingming had something on her mind. Leah took out Gu Mingming's half-completed feather fan and placed it on the table. "All right, give Wabi-Eye some time to get used to it. Maybe he'll come when you're done with the fan." "Really?" Gu Mingming looked up at Leah. Leah nodded. Really? Leah added in his heart. Since you want to see him, I will bring him to you even if I have to resort to trickery. Moreover, with Wabi-Eye's stupidity, it would be too easy to trick him. Gu Mingming's mood improved upon hearing Li's words. She picked up the fan and continued sticking the feathers onto the bamboo fan frame. As she did so, she said, Gregory, I really have to thank you. If not for you, I would not have so many feathers to make a fan. I want to keep the first one for myself, but since you provided the feathers and you are returning to the Moon Mountains, I will give it to you after it is done. In the future, you can give it to a female you like, and perhaps you can trick a wife into coming home. After all, the beast world was lacking in resources, and the females here had never seen anything good. A little romance was enough to win a female over. For example, the last time in the bamboo forest, Gu Mingming had made a few cups out of a piece of bamboo and carved a name on each cup. Such a small object was extremely precious to Sandy. Mandy also placed it at home and used it to drink a cup of water every day, making it seem like some kind of sacred ritual. Before using it, she would have to wash herself before using it on the cup. It was really not impossible to trick a wife into coming home with such a fan. Gregory's gaze landed on the half-completed fan in Gu Mingming's hands. Trick a wife? If he gave it to her, would she want it? Okay. Gregory moved his lips and smiled bitterly. I'm done with my meal, so I'll be leaving. I will bring Melody to you tomorrow. Thank you. Gu Mingming looked up with a smile before continuing to stick on her fan. Gregory spread his wings and left, his gaze deep and profound. 8 days. He only had 8 days left. If she had finished making her fan in these 8 days, would something have changed between them? Gregory could not tell what he was looking forward to. All he knew was that he wanted to catch enough Melody for her as soon as possible so that she could make the fan. Counting down to the 7th day, Gregory came up with a strange idea. He used vines to tie the bound Melody's feet together one by one. Then, he grabbed the vines and flew back. This time, he brought back a total of 26 Melody. Enough for her to make a fan. Moreover, he did not need to fly anymore. There were only 7 days left. He wanted to stay by her side and watch her stick the feathers on the fan one by one. Even if she did not raise her head to look at him, as long as she could stay in his gaze, that was enough. When Gregory returned, Gu Mingming was using the snake skin to filter the grape wine. She scooped the grapes from the stone basin into the wooden barrel, discarding the pulp. It was just that his eyes were empty, lacking a bit of spirit. He looked very disappointed. Chapter 1272. Gu Mingming nodded and glanced at Gregory from the corner of her eyes. She smiled politely. You're back. Hey, you brought so many back this time? Are you leaving early? Gregory shook his head. It's just too troublesome to fly back and forth, so I brought more back in one go. Gu Mingming nodded and heaved a sigh of relief. I thought you were leaving early. It's so hard for me to have a friend whom I can get along well with. I can't bear to leave just like that. Gu Mingming's unintentional words made Gregory tremble. She said, Can't bear to leave? Gregory felt as if a rainbow cake had fallen from the sky and smashed onto his head. He was completely dumbfounded. So the 3 words, can't bear to leave, were so mesmerizing? Yeah, Gregory didn't even know what he should say. He just stared at Gu Mingming without blinking. Leo waved his tail and chuckled. My Gu Mingming is always so sentimental. Even if you don't leave now, won't you still have to leave 7 days later? Gregory heard the sound of something cracking. He clenched his fists instinctively. His throat felt as if it was being strangled, and he couldn't make a sound. Gu Mingming sighed involuntarily. She was filled with regret. She liked iPartment and My Own Swordsman because these 2 dramas had a common characteristic. That was, lovers were by her side and friends were opposite. Every day was joyous, and the people she liked would gather together. But her friends were scattered all over the beast world. St. Nazir's Barit, Ian and the 16 valued females, Sauter's Huda, Jiaoyu and Sandy's family, Zacharias Chi Xian, Kanwu, Natalie and Peter's family, Snake King Valley's little shit. Why couldn't they all gather together? Gu Mingming's disappointment contained too many emotions. But to Gregory, this sigh only represented her reluctance to leave him. These few days, he had been hoping for her reluctance to leave. Now that it had come, he was in even more pain. He knew that they had to separate, so why did he want more? The more he obtained, the more he couldn't let go. He was torturing himself. Leah smiled nonchalantly and carried Gu Meng Meng to Elvis. All right, don't think about it anymore. Go take a nap and leave this to me. Aren't we going to see Dodgy and Kiera at Sandy's place in the afternoon? Gu Meng Meng was also in a bad mood and did not have the mood to continue fiddling around. She just nestled in Elvis's arms and did not say a word, allowing Elvis to carry her back to the stone castle for an afternoon nap. After Gu Meng Meng entered, Leah acted as if he could not see Gregory's anxious gaze. He just looked at Oriton and said, Oriton, make a trip to the Snake King Valley and tell Wabi Gu Meng Meng is in trouble. And then? Oriton asked. Leah chuckled. There's no more after that. After saying these 4 words, I'm afraid you can't even catch up to Wabi-I's shadow. Oriton was expressionless. Leah waved his tail and said, I will grill fish for you when we return. Without replying, Oriton had already turned to leave, leaving Leah with a resolute back view. The fortitude of a foodie. Gregory frowned, not understanding Lee's meaning. Although Gu Meng Meng did not seem to be in good condition, she did not look like she was in trouble. Chapter 1273. Gregory's heart skipped a beat. That's right. Even though he knew she was powerful and had a Wolf King partner protecting her, and even saw her safe and sound with his own eyes, he still couldn't help but worry about her when he heard the words Meng Meng is in trouble. Was there something he hadn't realized? What kind of trouble had she gotten herself into? There was even a moment when Gregory suddenly rejoiced in his heart. If she was really in trouble, wouldn't he have a good excuse to postpone the 1-month appointment? He wanted to stay by her side, not just for 7 days. This thought made Gregory's heart flutter. The muddle-headed state he had been in for the past few days started to clear up. All the strangeness and discomfort he felt had the most logical explanation. What difference in air pressure, difference in environment. He clearly had fallen for that little female and didn't want to leave. The person he had wanted to get rid of as soon as he saw her as an eyesore had now become a precious treasure that he couldn't bear to let go of even for a second. After understanding his own thoughts, Gregory didn't feel the slightest bit relieved. The marriage agreement between the Vulture tribe and that great lord was a dead end. Now that there was no female to inherit the heart of the desert, the leader of the Vulture tribe was destined to be lonely for generations to come. He could never covet for love. The oath he made when he inherited the position of tribe leader had now become a curse. Lee's words had just touched on the point. Looking at Gregory's expression, he knew it was about time to reel in the net. It looked like it wasn't that his ability to scheme people had deteriorated, but that the person he had met was Gu Meng Meng, so he was destined to fail miserably. He said that Wabi-I and Gregory's concern leads to chaos. How could it not be applied to himself? He had always been led by the nose by Gu Meng Meng. Once she frowned, he couldn't do anything about it. But in this world, Gu Meng Meng was probably the only person he couldn't scheme against. Apart from her, he could place everyone else on the chessboard without a care, including himself. 6 days before Gregory had to leave. Morning. Gu Meng Meng had just finished her breakfast and was sitting outside the stone castle, basking in the sun. A chirp came from the sky, and Gregory immediately went on high alert. He turned his head with a sharp gaze and went into a defensive state. There was no other reason other than that all the birds were on the Moda Mountains. Anyone who left was an enemy, and it would be a life-and-death battle. A huge pair of wings circled in the sky and landed steadily beside Gu Meng Meng. It was none other than Ian. He waved at Gu Meng Meng indifferently, as if he did not see Gregory. Just as he was about to walk towards Gu Meng Meng, Gregory launched a fierce attack at him without any explanation. Ian was also a 3rd-level orc. Although he had mated with Mandy, he had not broken through to 3rd level and still needed to accumulate some battle experience. On the other hand, Gregory was an orc who had been at the peak of 3rd level for a long time. In addition, the vultures had always lived on the mountaintop of the Moda Mountains with the harshest weather. They had been tempered by nature, so their abilities were much stronger than orcs of the same level. Even though Ian was prepared for this attack, he was only able to avoid being hit in his vitals. A bloody wound spread from his collarbone all the way to his shoulder. The wound was so deep that his bones could be seen. It was a terrifying sight. Chapter 1274. With one question, the distance between them was immediately revealed. Gu Mengmeng had the powers of a beast king. No matter how restricted her body was, it was not something a third-level orc could withstand. Because it was the truth, Gu Mengmeng was worried that Ian did not hold back, and this push caused Gregory to be seriously injured. His throat was filled with blood, but he gritted his teeth to prevent any blood from leaking out. He forcefully swallowed the mouthful of blood back down. Clean up the family. Gregory gritted his teeth. Gu Mengmeng was still on guard against Gregory. She glared at him and prepared to retaliate. She tilted her head slightly and said, "Leah, treat Ian's injuries." Yeah. Leah pulled Ian over and pressed him onto the stone bench. He then retrieved a fishbone needle and a suture made from intestines from the stone castle and started stitching up Ian's wounds. Although Ian always looked sickly, he was still the former leader of the Eagle Owl tribe. He had his own pride. When Leah threaded the needle through his flesh, he was sweating from the pain but did not make a sound. He just clenched his fists tightly and said, "I was the one who gave the order to leave Moda Mountains. I was also the one who betrayed the oath. The Eagle Owl clansmen were merely obeying the orders of me, the clan leader. This time I deserve it. If it's not enough, you can come at me. Come me my ass." Gu Mengmeng did not even turn back. She kept her guard up against Gregory and said, "The Eagle Owl tribe has submitted to Saint Nazir. They are all my people now. If you want to touch them, you have to ask for my permission first." Gregory felt that the mouthful of blood he had just swallowed must have been boiling lava. Otherwise, why would he feel a burning pain from his throat to his chest, as if he had been drenched in boiling oil? By right, he should have replied to Gu Mengmeng arrogantly, "This is the family matters of the birds. You have no right to interfere." If Gu Mengmeng had insisted on stopping him, then he should have attacked Ian continuously before he breathed his last, until he died. But the words that were stuck in his throat were, "He's your man, then what about me? What am I?" He could not bring himself to ask, because he knew he was asking to be humiliated. But the left side of his chest felt as if his heart was being rubbed against a hot pan without oil. It hurt so much that he didn't know what to do. Gregory's eyes were instantly filled with blood, but he could not shift his gaze away from Gu Mengmeng's face. His throat was choked by the question he wanted to ask, but could not ask. Even breathing was extremely strenuous for him. Leah was already very familiar with dealing with this level of external injuries, and his techniques were extremely proficient. While Gregory and Gu Mengmeng were staring at each other, he had already stitched up Ian's wound. After washing his hands, he wrapped his arms around Gu Mengmeng's waist and grinned. "Aya, why are you so angry? Why couldn't they just talk things out? Why do they have to resort to violence? Besides, your males are still alive. Since when did you have the chance to beat people up? Go back and sit down. I'll take care of it." Gu Mengmeng took 2 steps back before returning to sit beside Ian. Looking at the wound that Leah had stitched up, she felt upset and said, "We just mated and we're already disfigured. I don't know how Mandy will blame me later." Ian did not appreciate her kindness. He snorted and said, "Disfigured what? I'm a male. This small wound will heal by tomorrow. There won't be any scars left." Chapter 1275. He wanted to say, "Don't worry about it," but the blood in his throat was still bubbling, and he could not open his mouth. He did not know what he was holding on for, but he just did not want Gu Mengmeng to see him vomiting blood. Leah did not force him and just continued. "From what I know, the rule of Moda Mountains is that once a bird tribe leaves Moda Mountains, they are never allowed to return. Otherwise, all the birds on Moda Mountains will gang up and kill them. But Ian has not returned to Moda Mountains, so there is no reason for you to attack him here, right?" Gregory was very clear that if he insisted on attacking Ian now, it would mean that he had broken off all ties with Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng's attitude was very clear. She wanted to protect the Eagle Owl tribe and Ian. Just thinking about her guarded gaze just now, Gregory's heart was torn apart. For some strange reason, He nodded his head and admitted Lee's verbal game. This was his greed. He did not want to become Gu Mingming's enemy. At least in these last 6 days, he wanted to cherish every frown and smile of hers. Leah admired Gregory's adaptability and smiled. But the Eagle Owl tribe is indeed the traitor of Moda Mountains. It is not wrong for Ian to suffer this blow. Moreover, he is a male. Fighting and killing is very normal. Don't you think so? Leader Gregory. Gregory nodded his head with difficulty. His gaze landed on Gu Mingming's face. Seeing that her expression had cleared up, the tightness in his chest could finally be released. Leah patted Gregory's back nonchalantly, as if to comfort him. In the end, the mouthful of blood in Gregory's mouth was spat out by Leah just like that. Aya, why did you vomit blood? Leah exclaimed in surprise. He then hurriedly pulled Gregory to sit at the side of the stone table, diagonally opposite Gu Mingming. He took out a clean bee skin for Gregory to wipe the corners of his mouth and said in a seemingly reproachful, but yet helpless and doting tone, Gu Mingming, aren't you being too heavy-handed? It's just two males fighting. It's fine if you side with them, but you still want to kill them? Gu Mingming was a little dumbfounded when she saw Gregory vomiting blood. She was too anxious just now and did not hold back her strength. She seemed to have pushed him quite hard. Clearing her throat, Gu Mingming stood up and walked to Gregory's side. She took the beast skin from his hands and helped him wipe the corners of his mouth. She said awkwardly, "That's sorry, I was too heavy-handed. I didn't mean to hurt you like this. You don't have to apologize. It's my fault." These words did not sound gentle at all, but this was the most tactful way Gregory could think of to say, "Don't blame yourself. I'm fine, don't worry." Gu Mingming knew that she was not a person with a low EQ, but Gregory's words were too tactful. No matter how she listened, it sounded like Gu Mingming was using her power to bully others. Yes, his skills were inferior. In the entire beast world, there was only one Elvis who was as skilled as Gu Mingming. Other than Elvis, everyone else was inferior in front of Gu Mingming. But Leah was right. Outsiders should not interfere in a battle between males. Moreover, Ian was indeed the traitor of the Moda Mountains. As the leader of the Moda Mountains, Gregory did have the right to get rid of him. She was too rash in this matter, but she could not stand by and watch Ian get killed just like that. Chapter 1276. All right, Gregory replied with a bitter smile. All he could think of was the phrase, "a blessing in disguise." Gu Mingming added, "But let me say this first. If Ian doesn't return to Moda Mountains, you cannot attack him anymore. If there's a next time, I'll still beat you up." Gregory did not say anything, but Ian snorted coldly. "I can settle my own matters myself. Do I need you to show off? You can't even beat him. Why are you acting like you're 13 points? Gu Mingming turned around and scolded him without holding back. Ian originally had the look of a sickly crown prince. Now that he was injured, his face turned even paler and he looked like he was about to die. He clearly had handsome features, but he put on a look of disdain in front of Gu Mingming. He said, "It's better to be beaten to death than to let a female stand up for me. TSK, when will you get rid of your bad habit of being a busybody?" Gu Mingming stepped forward and poked Ian's wound with one finger, causing him to clench his teeth in pain. However, Gu Mingming raised her brows and said, "Stupid birdman who doesn't know what's good for him. I really don't know what Mandy sees in you. TSK. Gu Mingming, if you have the guts, wait for me to recover." Ian ground his teeth and said sinisterly. Gu Mingming clapped her hands and said with a face full of disdain, "Do you still think I'm the weak little female from 2 years ago? So what if you have recovered? You still can't beat me? Ha ha, you're really not cute." Ian snorted. Gu Mingming chuckled. "The whole world thinks I'm cute. Only you think I'm not cute. That only proves that your eyesight is bad and you have a problem with your sense of beauty." "Ha ha, the whole world? Where?" Ian retorted indignantly. Gu Mingming hugged Elvis on her left and Leah on her right. She smiled brightly and said, "My hubby is my entire world. If they think I'm cute, then I'm cute." Elvis flexed his fingers and chuckled. "Yeah, I'll help you kill whoever says you're not cute. That way, only those who think you're cute will be left in this world. All right? Ian rolled his eyes and rejected the low-quality dog food that she was sending him. Gu Meng Meng won the first round. Gu Meng Meng proudly kissed Elvis and Lee's cheeks and took 2 fruit from the fruit platter. She bit one and threw the other to Ian. Ian had injured one shoulder and could only use his other hand to catch the fruit Gu Meng Meng threw at him. He did not stand on ceremony and directly took a bite. Do you know about the stray beasts attacking Saint Nazaire? Yes, I heard from the informant. Are the losses serious? Gu Meng Meng asked. Ian shook his head and his gaze swept past Leah. Without stopping, he said nonchalantly, only Maya was lost. The other females managed to escape because they went up the mountain to prey. The tribe lost some food, and a few caves were messed up. These are all small matters. Barit and I can handle it. Gu Meng Meng nodded and did not say anything. After Ian finished his fruit, he asked again, then will you return to Saint Nazaire this winter? Mandy. Chapter 1277. Gu Meng Meng was so engrossed in her conversation with Ian that she did not notice Gregory's envious gaze behind her. He was extremely displeased with Ian's tone towards Gu Meng Meng. This displeasure was even greater than the displeasure he felt towards Modem Mountains when he broke his oath. Wanting to kill him because of the oath was his duty, but wanting to kill him because of his attitude towards Gu Meng Meng was a roar in his heart. When he saw the present, his anger had already subsided, and all that was left was loneliness. Ian and Gu Meng Meng were obviously not partners. They both had their own partners and did not spend much time together. But from the moment they met, they were not at all distant. This was the first time Gregory saw Gu Meng Meng baring her fangs and brandishing her claws. In his impression, other than that time when she went out to pick grapes from the tribe, she was always warm to everyone else. However, Ian seemed to be very special. The way they interacted with each other was very different. Even though it was all sharp words, there was no anger. No matter how sharp their words were, when she had a delicious fruit, she would subconsciously throw one to Ian, and Ian would catch it without any hesitation and eat it. They could even switch from fighting to normal mode in an instant, and then from normal mode back to mutual attack mode. But even though Gu Meng Meng said that he was a bad friend who could not do anything but spoil things, the moment he was attacked, Gu Meng Meng still rushed out without thinking and stood in front of him. Ian must be special to Gu Meng Meng. But why? They were clearly not partners, so why was he so special? Envy, jealousy, he wanted to go crazy. Especially when Gu Meng Meng stood against him without hesitation for Ian, Gregory's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. For the past 24 days, she smiled at him, treated him well, used Melodi's feathers to make a fan, and even said that she wanted to give him the first one. She even said that she could not bear to give it to him. Were all these just illusions? Was he not even worth a mention in her heart? But just now, she wiped away the blood at the corner of his lips so gently and apologized. No matter how he did not go down a mountain, Gregory also knew that in the beast world, it was normal for a female to want to cut open a male's chest to see what his heart looked like. She just gave him a push. Why did she need to apologize? Gregory's attention was all on Ian and Gu Meng Meng. He completely did not notice Lee's helpless chuckle. Sometimes strength and intelligence really couldn't be compared. It was just a clumsy method of giving a sweet date after a slap. But this Gregory was like a naive brat who didn't know the ways of the world. The first awakening of love was probably like this, right? Leah did not even need to think about it to easily guess what Gregory was thinking. If he had abandoned Mota Mountains like Ian, would Gu Meng Meng treat him the same way she treated Ian and give him a special treatment? Leah did not even need to think about it. When he was in danger, she stood by his side without hesitation. This was the reason why Ian had long arrived at Sauter, but Leah did not allow him to show himself. Just like what Gu Meng Meng had said, beggars would not envy Ma Yun for his wealth, but they would envy the beggar on the neighboring street for getting $2 more than him today. Gregory was the same. He would not envy how well Gu Meng Meng treated Elvis and Leah, because they were Gu Meng Meng's partners and he was not. Chapter 1278. Every day, Leah would remind Gregory of the countdown of losing Gu Mingming. When Gregory's uneasiness and reluctance to part with her reached a peak, Leah would show him another possibility called Ian. A person who lived in the harsh cold would not be afraid of the cold, unless he had experienced warmth. A person who had nothing would not worry about gains and losses, unless he had obtained something. A person who had no desires would not have any weaknesses, unless he was greedy. So, Leah kept Gregory by Gu Mingming's side and did not mention a word about the Moda Mountains, gradually weakening his defenses. Then, as someone who had also escaped from the abyss of loneliness, he knew better than anyone how attractive Gu Mingming's sun-like warmth was to someone who had never experienced beauty. After experiencing warmth, he would naturally be afraid of the cold. And this greed was the chain that was strangling his throat. On the 5th day of Gregory's departure, Sauter was in an uproar. Before the sky brightened, a black figure rushed into the stone castle. It was so fast that even Elvis could not stand up in time and could only protect Gu Mingming in his arms. His sharp claws grabbed the intruder's throat in an instant, but that person did not seem to feel it at all. He just stared at Gu Mingming's shoulders with bloodshot eyes and shook her with all his might. Gu Mingming, open your eyes right now. Open them. When Elvis saw who it was, he sighed in exasperation and retracted his claws. Gu Mingming was sleeping soundly when she was shaken so badly that the world spun around her. She looked at Wabi-Ai in a daze and was completely unaware of the situation. She replied in a daze, "Little shit, what's wrong with you? I was the one who wanted to ask you. What's wrong with you? I'm warning you, I won't allow you to die." Gu Mingming's shoulders were hurting from the grip. She took a deep breath and could not calm herself down as she looked at Wabi-Ai's crazed look. She smacked his head and sent him flying. Then, she rubbed her shoulders and stood up to walk over to Wabi-Ai. "Calm down. Who told you that I was going to die?" Wabi-Ai was a little dazed from the smack. He stared at Gu Mingming with widened eyes. Seeing that she was indeed unharmed, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. "It's good that you're fine. It's good that you're fine. Damn it, you scare me to death." Gu Mingming looked at Wabi-Ai, curling up in a corner, trying to calm himself down. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. She kicked him. "I hate it the most when people disturb my sleep. I'll let you off this time on your account. Think how to explain to me tomorrow. If you don't explain well, I'll cook snake stew with you. Sleep, the sky is not even." Gu Mingming snuggled back into Elvis's arms and fell asleep after a while. It was so Gu Mingming sure. Calm Gregory, who was recuperating in the stone castle, naturally saw the commotion. "Ha! She's so cute even when she's angry. How good would it be if she inherited the heart of the desert?" Gregory did not sleep the entire night. He just sat there in a daze as he stared at Gu Mingming's closed door. He sat there for the entire night. Chapter 1279. Gu Mingming did not feel good seeing Wabi-Ai in this state, so she called Elvis and Leah over to discuss whether she should look for the beast deity to ask about the love in the sky, since Gregory would be leaving in 5 days. Leah nodded in agreement while Elvis tugged at Gu Mingming's hand with a chuckle. "What should I do? I feel a little nervous." Gu Mingming looked at Elvis suspiciously. After some thought, she finally understood that he was now a beast king and could go with her to meet the beast deity in her dreams. She chuckled. "Yeah, you should be nervous meeting your father-in-law for the first time. But my father is very easy to get along with, so it's fine." Elvis kissed the top of Gu Mingming's head and nodded in agreement. Leo wagged his tail sourly. "Gu Mingming, let's hurry and find the spirit of the rocky cliffs after finding the love of the sky. I want to level up too. I also want to become a beast king and accompany you to meet your father-in-law." "All right," Gu Mingming agreed readily. She did not know that Li's true motive behind his coquettish act was to obtain the tier of the beast deity after becoming a beast king, so that he could extend Gu Mingming's life in the future. Leah smiled and nodded. His expression was extremely satisfied. Then, he straightened his posture. "Then let's sort out the questions you want to ask." Gu Mingming nodded. "First, we need to know who that great lord is. I have a feeling that I know him and get along well with him. It's really annoying to lose a piece of my memory." Leah pinched Gu Mengming's little face. He gave a doting and indulgent smile. We must ask this question. After all, that great lord seems to have some connections with the vulture tribe. It will be beneficial for us if we can understand enough information. Also, Leah hesitated for a moment before telling Gu Mengming about how he had schemed against Gregory. Gu Mengming's eyes widened in disbelief. So, you mean that Gregory likes me now? Leah nodded with an expression that said, It's a pity, but it's exactly what you think. Gu Mengming slapped herself on the face. She wanted to cry, but had no tears. Brother, how can you do this? It's too despicable to make use of other people's feelings. I feel like I'm a scumbag. Leah pulled down Gu Mengming's little hand and held it in his palm. He said cautiously, I didn't tell you beforehand because I didn't want you to become an accomplice. You didn't do anything to him, did you? So, the person who schemed against him and used him was me. It had nothing to do with you. Besides, I'm using people's hearts, not their emotions. Gu Mengming pouted, her face full of grievance. Leah said, I allowed him to get close to you, but I did not force him to like you. He was the one who couldn't control his own heart and couldn't extricate himself. To a certain extent, this situation was his own choice, and I merely foresaw this outcome. He willingly fell into depravity, using his feelings as the price to allow himself to be captured in exchange for greed. It just so happens that I need this greed, that's all. Gu Mengming frowned. Speak human language. Chapter 1280. But you can't make use of other people's feelings. Gu Mengming felt extremely helpless. She could have asked Gregory to bring her to Mota Mountains in a righteous and confident manner, but now that he had fallen for her, she could not bring herself to do so. Because in terms of feelings, she could not possibly give him anything in return. So what right did she have to ask him for anything? Leah sighed helplessly and rubbed Gu Mengming's little head, saying, It's just that there's one more person who likes you. Why do you have to be so troubled? Gu Mengming gave Leah an aggrieved look, letting him experience it himself. Leah surrendered helplessly, saying, How about this, if you feel that it's too much of a burden for you? After this matter is over, just cast a bewitching spell on him and make him forget about his feelings for you. Everything that happened during this period of time is like a dream to him. In the future, when he returns to Mota Mountains, he will wake up from this dream and resume his previous life without any losses. But if you still feel that you're losing money, then treat him better during this period of time. Leah shrugged, before adding, Intimate contact and mating are not allowed. Gu Mengming sighed, saying, Things have already come to this. There's no other way. But Leah, to be honest, I'm very afraid of emotional debt. Don't make use of other people's feelings for me in the future. If something like Snake happens again, I will break down. All right. Leah hugged Gu Mengming and agreed seriously. Actually, he did not wish for so many people to covet Gu Mengming. But what other choice did he have? Gu Mengming was the brightest star in the world. When she opened her eyes, even the warm sun in March paled in comparison. In this world, who else could make people fall in love at first sight and be infatuated with her for the rest of their lives? But, in his scheme, the most he could do was to allow others to like Gu Mengming, but he would never allow others to obtain Gu Mengming. Moreover, Leah would not feel any sense of guilt because of this. In the beast world, being weak was a sin in itself. If the other party could crush him in terms of intelligence or beat Elvis in terms of strength, then the other party would definitely not pity them when they snatched Gu Mengming away. Survival of the fittest, survival of the fittest. This was the law of nature. It was cruel, but useful. However, since Mengming did not like it, there was no harm in not using this kind of trick next time. After all roads lead to Rome. Even if it was a little more complicated, there would always be other ways. After getting Li's promise, Gu Mengming nodded before continuing, Other than that, great lord, I also want to ask what secrets are hidden in Mota Mountains. It feels weird. I keep feeling that there's something wrong with that mountain, and it has something to do with me. Leah nodded. I'm also very interested in the other treasures hidden in the Mota Mountains. Gu Mengming smiled and did not say a word. She was not interested in the treasures, but the Motu mountains themselves. This feeling was very strange and indescribable. It was like all the blood in his body was boiling, and he had an inexplicable desire to get closer. Chapter 1281. My instincts tell me that something must have happened when we were in the Mecca Desert. We forgot some crucial things. It was this forgotten information that caused me to change. Gu Meng Meng concluded. Leah nodded and said, "Yeah, I think so too." After thinking for a while, Leah added, "Gregory said that the temperature on the mountaintop is extremely bad and you don't have any fur to protect you. I'm very worried about this. Ask the beast deity if there's any solution." "Yeah, got it." Gu Meng Meng answered obediently. Leah kissed Gu Meng Meng's forehead and said, "All right, you can sleep with Elvis. I'll stay here to guard the two of you." Elvis and Leah exchanged glances, and the message was take good care of her. It was just that one was talking about her body, while the other was talking about her soul. Elvis placed Gu Meng Meng on his chest, with one hand passing under her neck and wrapping around her back, while the other hand was placed on her waist. His large tail lightly covered her stomach, while his two slender legs intertwined with hers. Elvis placed Gu Meng Meng on his chest and placed one hand on the other. No one knew what would happen after they fell asleep. Elvis was not even sure if he could really go to the beast deity with Gu Meng Meng this time. So he wanted to hug Gu Meng Meng to the fullest extent so that he could feel more at ease. Gu Meng Meng pressed her little face against Elvis's chest and listened to his heartbeat. She comforted him softly. "Don't worry, just relax." "Yeah." Elvis kissed Gu Meng Meng's little head again before slowly closing his eyes. Both of their breaths were light and even. Slowly, even the frequency of their breathing and heartbeats reached the same rhythm. Their consciousness gradually faded away. In the white fog, Gu Meng Meng held Elvis's hand and smiled faintly. Elvis also stared at Gu Meng Meng. He did not say anything but felt at ease. Even if there was only thick white fog around them, Elvis felt especially at ease because he could see Gu Meng Meng. The beast deity stood in the clouds as usual and was not surprised to see Elvis. He just waved at Gu Meng Meng in a benevolent and amiable manner. But Gu Meng Meng felt weird because the amiability of the beast deity today was a little exaggerated. "My precious daughter, you're finally back." Without another word, the beast deity pulled Gu Meng Meng over from Elvis's hands. With a wave of his sleeves, Elvis was flung far away. In the illusion realm, Elvis could not feel any pain, but he was still baffled by the beating and did not dare to retaliate, so he could only crawl back pathetically. However, he did not know why he could not close the distance no matter how much he ran, even though it looked like it was only 100 to 200 meters away. The beast deity completely ignored Elvis and pulled Gu Meng Meng to sit on the two-seater bench. He looked at Gu Meng Meng with a sorrowful expression. "Io, my precious daughter has really suffered a lot. Look at how tanned your skin is and how rough your hands have become. Ayaya, why are you frowning? Did your partner not take good care of you? Don't be afraid. Tell me what you've been through. I'll help you." Gu Meng Meng looked at the beast deity with a face full of black lines. She totally did not understand what he was trying to do. She glanced at Elvis, who was still running towards them with all his might, but could not get any closer. She then turned her gaze back and said, "Father, did you take the wrong medicine?" Chapter 1282. Gu Meng Meng's hair stood on end from the beast deity's stare. His gaze was clearly saying, "If you dare to plead, I will break your legs." She shook her head stiffly and said, "It's only right for a father-in-law to teach his son-in-law a lesson. It's only right." The beast deity then nodded in satisfaction and said, "Of course, if I don't put him in his place the first time we meet, does he think that my precious daughter is someone he can marry so easily? Doesn't he know whose precious daughter she is?" The beast deity glanced at Elvis and said, "Aren't you going to run faster?" At such a distance, Elvis could clearly see what the beast deity said to Gu Meng Meng and what expressions he used. Receiving Gu Meng Meng's helpless and heartache expression, Elvis smiled and shook his head, indicating to her that he was all right and that he could handle it. After all, If Elvis had a daughter, he would definitely not be as merciful as the beast deity when he made things difficult for his daughter's first partner. The beast deity also ignored Elvis and Gu Mingming's flirtatious glances. He just held Gu Mingming's little hand and said, "Raising a daughter is like raising a pot of flowers. You water and fertilize her, but one day a bastard called son-in-law takes away even the flower pot." Gu Mingming grinned awkwardly and said, "Father, have you been addicted to TikTok recently?" The beast deity had originally wanted to cry, but was exposed by Gu Mingming. He awkwardly cleared his throat and forcefully held back the tears that had welled up in his eyes. He glared at Gu Mingming and said, "That's how it is. If you want to marry someone else's daughter, you have to at least do two things." Gu Mingming felt that the beast deity was possessed by a drama queen today. She and Elvis had been partners for almost 2 to 3 years, and he was only putting this son-in-law in his place now. Wasn't his reaction time a little too long? But thinking that the beast deity was doing everything for her, Gu Mingming felt very warm. Although Elvis would not bully her at all, there is someone who could be your backing, your path of retreat, holding your hand and handing it over to another man, telling him, if one day you don't love her anymore, don't lie to her, don't bully her, just give me a call, I'll come and fetch her home. That feeling was really good. It was so good that Gu Mingming thought she would never be able to dream of it in her entire life. Suddenly, the untouchable cord of kinship in her heart was violently plucked at this moment. Gu Mingming smiled and played along with the beast deity's harmless act, asking, what are those two things?" The beast deity glanced at Elvis from the corner of his eyes. "First, surpass your father. Second, please your mother. I am a father and a mother at the same time, so he wants to surpass me and please me at the same time. If he can't do those two things, and want me to acknowledge him as my son-in-law. King me." Gu Mingming smiled and nodded. Beast Ling line. T. Elvis returned her a determined gaze before transforming into a wolf and sprinting towards Gu Mingming with all his might. Gu Mingming felt that Elvis was really quite pitiful, so she wrapped her arms around the beast deity's shoulders and said, "But father, what if my mother-in-law also makes things difficult for me in the future?" The beast deity laughed coldly. "If they think they can afford to offend me, they could try bullying you." Gu Mingming's heart warmed. She hugged the beast deity and rubbed her furry little head against his shoulder. "Father is mighty and dominating. Unify the martial world." The beast deity held Gu Mingming's hand. "Daughter, look, this is the martial world father has conquered for you. It will all be yours in the future. Ha ha." Chapter 1283. Father. At the moment Gu Mingming opened her mouth, the beast deity gestured for her to stop. "Old rules. You can only ask questions after watching the television series." Gu Mingming nodded. "Yeah, let's begin." But the beast deity shook his head. He glanced at Elvis. "I haven't accepted him yet. Why should I let him watch television with us?" Gu Mingming held her forehead. "Papa, my hubby has been running there for half a day," the beast deity snorted. "So what? How much did you suffer to give birth to his wolf cubs? What about him? What did he do? Why should he enjoy the pleasurable process while you bear the painful consequences?" Gu Mingming blushed. She shook the beast deity's shoulders. "Father, maintain your persona. You are a deity. Is it really okay to be so dirty?" The beast deity was so shaken that he was seeing stars, but he did not back down. With a snap of his fingers, Elvis was instantly pulled to their side. This level of running was nothing to Elvis. Although he was sweating a little, his expression was still stable. He didn't look like he was out of breath. This made the beast deity very unhappy. He felt like he hadn't vented his anger. So she hugged Gu Mingming's shoulder with one hand and slapped away Elvis's wolf claws that wanted to grab Gu Mingming's little hand with the other. She said, "Do you know how painful it was when my daughter gave birth to your child?" Elvis nodded. His expression was solemn. Elvis had personally delivered Huda and the other little ones. Gu Mingming's tragic cries were still Elvis's nightmares. In Elvis's memory, Gu Mingming had made him feel so much pain that he wanted to die twice. The last time she was extremely quiet was when Snake carried her back to the Snake King Valley. At that time, she was like a broken doll without a soul. Her blood dripped all over the ground, but she could not even make a sound, as if she was dead. The other time was when she was giving birth. Her cries pierced through the clouds and shattered his heart. It was as if thousands of ants were gnawing on his bones. It was so painful that he became numb. Those 2 times were nightmares that Elvis could never forget. Seeing Elvis nod, the beast deity laughed coldly. "No, what do you know? You've never given birth, how would you know?" Elvis was speechless and could only lower his head to admit his mistake, with a "I am guilty" look. The beast deity chuckled, looking as if he was up to no good. Gu Mengmeng nudged the beast deity lightly. "Father, you're a positive character. Don't smile so slyly. I will suspect that you are the villain behind the scenes." The beast deity raised his head and said, "My precious daughter is my life. I will fight to the death with anyone who makes you suffer. For you, I don't care whether it's the righteous or the antagonist or the sweet potato sect." This drama queen father was really unparalleled when he was stubborn. Gu Mengmeng felt that, maybe she should not bring Elvis back in the future. "All right, then, father, tell me, what do you have to do for Elvis to be acknowledged?" Gu Mengmeng smiled adorably, as if she was a good student begging her teacher for the final question. The beast deity glanced at Elvis and said, "Why is it that you are the one enjoying childbirth and my daughter is the one suffering? You should at least suffer the same pain and suffer the same pain to appease my anger." Chapter 1284. It's the best that you can think that way. I wanted to magnify my daughter's pain by 10 times for you to endure, but on account of your proper attitude, let's just magnify it by 8 times. Don't. Gu Mengmeng hugged the beast deity, her face filled with horror. "Father, the bone cracks will open during childbirth. That kind of pain is really terrifying. If you magnify it by 8 times, he will die." The beast deity was displeased. He twitched his lips. 7.5 times. Gu Mengmeng shook her head with a pleading expression. "Father, just the original degree will do. Please, you don't want me to be a widow, right?" The beast deity smiled gently as he rubbed Gu Mengmeng's little head. "It's all right. You still have Leah, even if he dies from the pain. In the future, when Leah comes, he will have to suffer again. If Leah also dies from the pain, I will find a better one for you. Father, you are my biological father." Gu Mengmeng wanted to cry. The beast deity acted as if he didn't understand what Gu Mengmeng was implying. He nodded seriously. "Yeah, of course I am your biological father. Why would a stepfather treat you so well? Am I right?" Gu Mengmeng held onto the beast deity's shoulders. "Father, you must have the right values. People say that it is better to demolish 10 temples than to ruin a marriage. Killing your son-in-law to find a new lover for your daughter is a degenerate act of morality and a twisted human nature." The beast deity held his heart with a heartbroken expression. His finger trembled as he pointed at Gu Mengmeng, as if Gu Mengmeng was extremely unfilial and had chased her elderly parents out of the house. All right. I have protected you with all my heart. You actually contradicted me for a little wolf cub." "Ah, my heart hurts so much." Gu Mengmeng had her excuse me. Look on her face. "Father, the Oscars owe you an identity number and a 10,086 golden statuette." Elvis's brain capacity couldn't handle the complicated situation before him. The beast deity had such a high status in the beast world that even looking up to him was a luxury. But he didn't expect the beast deity to be so lively, and he didn't understand most of the conversation between Gu Mengmeng and the beast deity. But looking at the current situation, it seemed like Gu Mengmeng had a conflict with the beast deity because she could not bear for him to suffer. Elvis did not want Gu Mengmeng to be put in a difficult position between him and the beast deity, so he tugged at her and said, "Xiao Meng, I am a male. A male's endurance is much stronger than a female's. Furthermore, I am a beast king. Don't worry, I'm not afraid of pain." "Elvis, believe me, the pain of giving birth is different from the pain you feel when you're fighting." Gu Mengmeng advised Elvis not to be stubborn. He should show his weakness at this moment. But Elvis smiled and rubbed Gu Mingming's little head, saying, "If you are in pain, I should be in pain 100%. This is the punishment I deserve. Now, Lord Beast God is only punishing me 7.5 times. This is already very merciful. Moreover, I can only break free from this nightmare after I've endured the punishment. Only then can I truly face your next labor. Be good and don't interfere. Let me feel pain for you once, okay?" The beast deity hugged Gu Mingming's shoulders and chuckled at Elvis, saying, "Since you've already said so, what are we waiting for?" With that, the beast deity twisted his finger and a transparent, square-shaped isolation barrier appeared beside Elvis. But with his strength, he could not break free. Chapter 1285. Elvis nodded. Giving Gu Mingming insurance was the right thing to do. Even though he felt that he would never hurt Gu Mingming no matter what, having another layer of insurance would make him feel more at ease. Gu Mingming sighed. She felt that this was a situation where one was willing to take the hit and the other was willing to take the hit. There was no room for her to intervene. The beast deity was still smiling benevolently. With a snap of his fingers, Elvis's body trembled. Sweat poured down like rain, and his pupils dilated. His hands trembled as he supported himself against the transparent barrier. Tears flowed down the corners of his eyes. Gu Mingming's heart tightened. She looked at his palm through the barrier and asked, "Is it very painful?" In her memory, Elvis had two of the most intense battles. The first time was when he was clearing Snake's trap in the Snake King Valley. There was not a single part of his body that was unharmed, and he was paralyzed in front of Snake's door, listening to Snake's last words, so weak. The second time was before they went to the Mecha Desert. He fought with Wabi Eye to increase his strength. That time, Wabi Eye really went all out and fought with him until both of them were on the brink of death. But Elvis did not cry during those 2 times. How painful was it now? He was actually crying? Elvis nodded, his lips trembling as he whispered, it hurts a lot." Sharp claws fiercely dug into his own heart. His brows were furrowed tightly, and his masseter muscles bulged. His eyes were so bloodshot that the whites of his eyeballs could not be seen, and there were only blood vessels covering his eyes. Even though he looked so ferocious, Gu Mingming could see a deep love in his eyes. "So, when you gave birth to the little wolves, it was this painful. Even if this pain was magnified 1,000 times on Elvis, he would at most grit his teeth. But the moment he thought of how this pain had tortured Gu Mingming, Elvis felt as if his heart had been gouged out by a bone-scraping knife and then soaked in an electrified liquid, repeatedly rubbing and crushing it. That kind of pain he could not describe. He always knew that Gu Mingming was in pain when giving birth, but he did not know what that pain felt like. Even though his heart ached for the pain Gu Mingming had gone through when giving birth. So he decided not to let Gu Mingming have any more children in the future. But only now did he know that only after truly experiencing her pain would he know what it felt like to have his heart torn into a bloody mess. How could he have dared to say that he had cared for him before? What kind of heartache was this, to the extent of having his heart pierced by a needle? He really is a beast. How much of a bastard and selfish had he been? In order to have more bargaining chips to keep her, he made her pregnant, made her give birth, and made her suffer so much. The beast deity hugged Gu Mingming's shoulders and looked at Elvis in disdain. "You can't take it anymore? Let me tell you, this is just the beginning of the pain. How long did my precious daughter suffer when she gave birth to your son? You haven't forgotten, have you?" How could he forget? That day, from labor pains to delivery, Gu Mingming spent the entire night tossing and turning. The beast deity continued. "The degree of labor pains will gradually increase. You just bear with it." Elvis's eyes were red as he nodded seriously. He looked at Gu Mingming with such heartache that it could drip blood. It was as if he was not the one in pain, but Gu Mingming, who was standing outside the barrier and not knowing what to do. Chapter 1286. The beast deity was unmoved and only said, "Have you ever seen someone giving birth halfway?" Gu Mingming was rendered speechless. She had no choice. The beast deity was the absolute ruler in this illusion realm. Even if she and Elvis had the power of a beast king, they could not exert any strength. So, no matter if she wanted to help from the outside or if Elvis wanted to break free from the inside, as long as the beast deity did not nod his head, it would all be useless. So, Gu Mingming just stood outside the barrier in a daze and at a loss, looking at Elvis, who was in so much pain, but still smiled and told her, "It's okay. Don't be afraid, he can hold on." Finally, after enduring the long labor pain, they entered the labor process. Elvis, that strong and unyielding man, was in so much pain that his legs turned to jelly and he directly knelt on the ground, panting heavily like a fish that had been beached. Even air was a luxury to him. Gu Mingming clenched her fists tightly and bit her lower lip, unable to shift her gaze away from Elvis's face. She just said softly, "Father, I understand what you mean." "MMM?" the beast deity asked softly. Gu Mingming smiled bitterly and said, "Not only do you want Elvis to experience the pain I went through during childbirth, you also want me to understand how tormented and helpless he and Leah felt when they saw me in so much pain during childbirth." Turning her head, Gu Mingming looked at the beast deity with 2 streaks of tears and a faint smile. She said, "Father, thank you for your good intentions. I understand." The beast deity then heaved a sigh of relief and nodded with a smile. Following Elvis's deafening roar, this childbirth experience course finally came to an end. The beast deity waved his hand, and the transparent barrier was removed. Gu Mingming went forward to support the exhausted Elvis. She hugged his head and kissed it over and over again. She asked, "Does it still hurt?" "MMM?" Elvis locked Gu Mingming tightly in his arms and choked with sobs. "It's me. Who made you suffer? I'm sorry. Xiaomeng, I'm sorry." The beast deity nodded in satisfaction, but he did not mercifully allow them to continue hugging each other. She grabbed Gu Mingming's collar and snatched her out of Elvis's arms. Then, she gave Elvis a tight slap, sending him flying far away. "Hugging my daughter in front of me. Do you want to die?" Gu Mingming's face was filled with rage. Elvis felt wronged. Why couldn't he hug his own wife? Dragging his weak and exhausted body, he staggered towards Gu Mingming. This time, he did not walk on the spot. He could clearly feel himself approaching her step by step. Gu Mingming wanted to step forward to welcome him, but the beast deity wrapped his arms around her shoulders and refused to let go. He shook his head and said, "My daughter is not someone who could be married so easily. If he can't even take these few steps towards you, how can he accompany you on your journey in the future?" Gu Mingming's heart ached for Elvis's suffering, but there was nothing she could do. Elvis smiled at Gu Mingming and said, "Xiaomeng, don't worry. No matter how far away you are, I will find you. Even if you're separated by mountains and seas, nothing can stop me from getting closer to you. You don't have to come over. Just stand there and wait for me. Don't run away, don't hide, don't abandon me. That's all." Gu Mingming stood there and reached out a hand. "I am waiting for you to hold my hand and bring me home." Chapter 12:87. Only then did the beast deity chuckle. He stopped acting like a drama queen and said with the indifferent elegance that a deity should have, "In my eyes, you are not worthy of my daughter. But because Gu Ming likes you, I reluctantly accept you. If you let me know that my precious daughter has suffered any grievances because of you, I will let you experience the true fury of the beast deity." Yes, Elvis lowered his head respectfully, not only to the supreme deity, but also because he was Gu Mingming's father. The beast deity released his grip and held Gu Mingming's other hand, saying, "Come, my precious daughter, accompany Daddy to watch television." With that, the beast deity pulled Gu Mingming to sit on the long bench for 2 people, while Elvis had no place to sit and could only sit on the ground beside Gu Mingming. His eyes were filled with deep love, and he could not see anything other than Gu Mingming. The beast deity had no time to care about Elvis's thoughts. With a wave of his hand, a screen-like object appeared in front of the 3 of them. The setting was the amusement park at the end of the previous television series. The first attraction was called Waves Blossoming. A two-person seashell flew up and down, as if it was floating on the surface of the sea. When the attraction was activated, colorful bubbles would spurt out from the side, complementing the romantic music to create a relaxing and sweet atmosphere. As Snake and Gu Meng Meng had called out too hastily, none of them brought their family members. Only Snake and Gu Meng Meng were a couple and sat together. The rest were either two men or two women. But in the past, Gu Meng Meng was the one sitting with Bailan. Now that Gu Meng Meng was accompanying Snake, Bailan was alone. She sat on the seashell alone and had just fastened her seatbelt when she heard her roommate shout to the staff in the studio, "Beautiful sister, there's no need to play music later. We have our own BGM." The staff readily agreed. After all, they had booked the entire place and were the boss. They could do whatever they wanted. Before Gu Meng Meng could react, Bailan's face darkened and she roared, "Ning Qizhu, do you have to be so ruthless?" "Gu Meng Meng, shut your mouth. You're not allowed to sing. Do you hear me?" Gu Meng Meng, who was still in a daze, instantly understood what their background music was when she heard Bailan shout. She burst out laughing. Snake roughly knew what background music they were talking about, but he did not say it out loud. He just looked at Gu Meng Meng's radiant smile and felt extremely happy. The small shell started to move, and colorful bubbles were blown out from the four corners. When the wind blew, the bubbles scattered, making the whole scene look beautiful. 1, 2, 3. After Ning Qizhu counted to 3, all the girls started singing in unison. "We're different. You're the only one in the dormitory who doesn't have a girlfriend." The chorus, accompanied by the rising and falling laughter, brightened Gu Meng Meng's face and warmed Snake's eyes. After coming down from the waves, Bailan pointed at Gu Meng Meng with a pained expression. "You little girl, even you betrayed me." Gu Meng Meng hid in Snake's arms and laughed hysterically. Only the heavens knew that she was the one being sung along with Bailan for the past half a year. So it was quite interesting to bully others like this. Chapter 12, 88. Zhang Jin Chung shook his head and instinctively glanced at Gu Meng Meng. Originally, he could have had a girlfriend, but he was intercepted. "You F***king have it now." With that, Bailan locked her arms around Zhang Jin Cheng's neck and kissed him. That ferocity, it was as if she wanted to eat Zhang Jin Cheng like he was a smoked pork rib. Both boys and girls were heckling. Snake did not join in, but his lips unknowingly curled upwards. Although this Bailan's words were not pleasant to hear, it was undeniable that she would always help him get rid of those eyesores. Although Zhang Jin Cheng did not receive Gu Meng Meng's love letter, and the two of them did not even manage to complete a full confession that day, Snake was still very unhappy that Zhang Jin Cheng was very handsome in Gu Meng Meng's eyes and was her type. However, if he had a girlfriend, and it was Gu Meng Meng's best friend, Bailan, then there would be no chance for the two of them. Yes, lovers should get married in the end. The 192 tall Zhang Jin Cheng was held by the neck by the 175 tall Bailan in the amusement park for the entire afternoon. When they came out of the amusement park, Zhang Jin Cheng broke free from Bailan's grip and said, "Bailan, there's something I have to make clear to you. Your confession doesn't count. We can't be considered a couple right now." Bailan was also very straightforward. She had never liked Zhang Jin Cheng in the first place, but she had been so infuriated by Gu Meng Meng and the other two that she had fooled around. So she simply nodded and said, "Sure." With that, Bailan let go. She chuckled and turned to look for Gu Meng Meng and the rest to play. But the moment she turned, someone grabbed her wrist again. Bailan turned around and looked at Zhang Jin Cheng with a puzzled expression, asking with her eyes, "What are you doing?" Zhang Jin Cheng gulped and said, "Bailan, I like you, be my girlfriend." Bailan looked at Zhang Jin Cheng in disbelief, not understanding what he meant. "Didn't you just say?" Zhang Jin Cheng scratched the back of his head and said, "Things like confessions should be left to the guys. Since I like you, I can't let you feel wronged. Whatever other girls have, I'll definitely let you have it too. Even if I can't give you the whole world, I can at least give you my whole world." Bailan blinked her eyes and said, "So you mean, at least, I have to give you a formal confession?" Zhang Jin Cheng smiled and said, "We've already kissed. You can't not take responsibility. Bai Lan snickered and hooked her arm around Jean Sheng's neck. All right, Lil Miss will take care of it. Since Jin Sheng and Bai Lan were officially dating today, everyone decided to follow the basketball club's rules and go to KTV for another night. When did this rule start? Yeah, it started when Gu Mengmeng and Snake were dating. That night, Snake occupied the seat on Gu Mengmeng's left, while Bai Lan sat on Gu Mengmeng's right. Jin Sheng sat on Bai Lan's right, while Bai Lan gave Gu Mengmeng a look. Now do you understand why I don't like him? Bai Lan glanced at Snake's face, then used the excuse of being tipsy to tell Gu Mengmeng, Min, you can't choose someone who is too domineering. You have to choose someone you can control. You see, there are 3 typical cases. Gu Mengmeng chuckled and raised her eyebrows, asking, which 3? Chapter 1289. First, Pan Jinlian, Bai Lan said as she counted on her fingers. Gu Mengmeng choked on her drink and almost spat it onto Bai Lan's face. She asked in disbelief, Who did you say? Pan Jinlian. Bai Lan seemed a little tipsy as she looked at Gu Mengmeng blankly. She reiterated, Yes, Pan Jinlian. Big sister. I studied in primary school after all. Don't lie to me. Gu Mengmeng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Even if she was busy working and did not study much, it was impossible for her not to recognize Pan Jinlian. She was not a good teaching material. Bai Lan waved a finger in front of Gu Mengmeng, making a no gesture. She said, Listen to me. Pan Jinlian, tell us what? Burp. I remember now. Pan Jinlian told us that, man. If you like them, keep them. If you don't like them, poison them to death and replace them. Simple and straightforward. Right, but look at your great Buddha. Does he look like someone who can force poison down his throat? No, not at all. Gu Mengmeng was speechless. She subconsciously glanced at Snake, only to see him playing with her hair with a forced smile. He whispered in her ear in a voice that only the 2 of them could hear, I will definitely drink the poison you gave me in 1 gulp. But poison is useless against me. Gu Mengmeng treated it as a joke. She elbowed him and shook her head with a smile. She turned to Bai Lan, only to see Bai Lan counting with her 2nd finger. Who is the 2nd case? It's Wu Zetian. Wu Zetian? What did Wu Zetian have to do with love? Wasn't she most famous for becoming the emperor? Bai Lan poked Gu Mengmeng's head with a look at you. You don't know anything expression. She continued. Wu Zetian told us that men should be kept if they are obedient. If they don't understand, then kill them. If you can fight, try not to make a ruckus. Gu Mengmeng, was that so? I did not study much, don't lie to me. Bai Lan raised her 3rd finger and laughed. Case number 3, Xuanzang. Gu Mengmeng's eyes almost popped out as she shook Bai Lan's shoulders. Sister, wake up. Xuanzang is a man, and a monk at that. He has nothing to do with love. Bai Lan shook her head and said, You're such an inexperienced little girl. Why are you so naive? Why are you so naive? Gu Mengmeng looked at Bai Lan in confusion, but Bai Lan continued, Tell me, why did so many fairies fight to marry Tripitaka in Journey to the West? Why? Gu Mengmeng thought for a while and said, Tripitaka is handsome. Bai Lan shook her head. Because Xuanzang is delicious and nutritious. So, after we get married, we can live. If we can't, we can still eat. Gu Mengmeng felt that there was nothing wrong with this logic. He slapped his thigh and laughed heartily. Bai Lan suddenly stopped laughing. She snatched Gu Mengmeng from Snakel's arms and hugged her. Then, she wailed, But why did you have to choose such a powerful man? If he bullies you one day, he can bully you to death. And there might not be anyone in the entire city who would dare to collect our corpses. So, Bai Lan was still worried about her. Chapter 1290. Bai Lan suddenly stopped crying. She stared at Gu Mengmeng for a long time before nodding. That's true. Gu Mengmeng did not know whether to laugh or cry at Bai Lan's words. Her reply made Gu Mengmeng very flustered. Bai Lan sniffled. It's all right, girl. Don't be afraid. If this grandson bullies you one day, I will protect you even if I die. Snake did not say a word. He just wrapped his arm around Gu Mingming's waist and carried her back in his arms before leaving. With the previous experience, Zhang Jinsheng and the rest were not surprised by his sudden departure. They only held back the crying and throwing a tantrum by Lan to stop her from chasing after Gu Mingming. Snake had already reached his limit today. If Bai Lan continued to chase after Gu Mingming and become a third wheel, Snake might just kill her. Back at the villa, Snake immediately pressed Gu Mingming onto the bed and kissed her lips without any explanation. Gu Mingming struggled for a while before giving up. She wrapped her arms around Snake's neck and kissed him affectionately. Getting Gu Mingming's response, Snake became even more brazen. The kiss lasted for a long time, so long that Gu Mingming was almost out of breath. Snake then released her. He gritted his teeth. Why should we die together? Even if you die, you should die in my arms. I will protect you. Gu Mingming was stunned for a long time before she realized that Snake was referring to Bai Lan. She chuckled. Bai Lan just drank too much. It's just words. Why take it so seriously? But she said I will bully you. Snake frowned. He was very bothered. Gu Mingming retorted. Then will you bully me? Snake's gaze darkened and his lips curled up slightly. Maybe in a specific place, like on the bed. Gu Mingming blushed. She pushed Snake. Don't fool around. Snake did not cross the line. He just hugged Gu Mingming and kissed her to his heart's content. Then, he reluctantly watched her enter the bathroom to shower. Meanwhile, he sat on the bed and listened to the sound of the water in the bathroom. It was as if he was torturing himself. He did not want to step back from this room. When Gu Mingming came out of the bathroom in her pajamas, she gave Snake a meaningful smile. Gu Mingming lowered her head to look at her cartoon-like top and bottom sleepiness. This was definitely the ultimate weapon to kill off any ambiguous atmosphere. Unless Snake'll had a special fetish, he would never misunderstand that this set of sleepiness had any ulterior motives or hints. But Gu Mingming did not know that in Snake's eyes, all he saw was a fresh and tender Gu Mingming who was still emitting steam. For example, if you were hungry and bought a meat bun for breakfast, would you care about the color of the advertisement printed on the plastic of the bun? Tu Ming, why don't we put the wedding on the agenda? Gu Mingming was shocked. Even though she had never been in a relationship before, Gu Mingming still had the heart of a young girl. She had imagined countless marriage proposals, but never did she expect that one day, when she pushed open the door of the bathroom, she would see a man with green eyes saying the word marriage to her, who was wearing cartoon pajamas. Chapter 1291. The next day was Monday, and school was in session as usual. Snake kept his formal attire and put on the same matching outfit as Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming felt a little shy. After all, they were still in school. Wouldn't it be too high profile for them to dress like this? But Snake said, "Silly girl, I can't wait for the whole world to know that we are a couple, so that those people won't know what's good for them and have designs on you." Gu Mingming smiled and said, "You are the most popular person in the school. There will definitely be more people who have designs on you than on me." Snake kissed Gu Mingming's little mouth and said, "I will keep my chastity for you." Gu Mingming blushed and felt dizzy. Combined with his self-talk and self-denial of his proposal last night, this sentence sounded even more meaningful to Gu Mingming. After reaching school, Gu Mingming saw the results list on the bulletin board and remembered that today was the day the mock test results were announced. So she squeezed her way over anxiously. Haha, there was no doubt that Snake was first in the year. But wait a minute, shouldn't Snake be in his second year? Why was he in the first year's list? Gu Mingming turned to look at Snake with a face full of confusion. Snake chuckled and said, "I entered school a year earlier to be your Prince Charming Senior. But now, since I am your boyfriend, I should be by your side all the time. So I stay back a year to accompany you." Snake placed his large hand on Gu Mingming's shoulder and leaned against her lazily. He tilted his head and smiled at her, asking, "Are you touched? Kiss me if you're touched. MMM?" Gu Mingming blushed and looked around. There were too many people around, and Gu Mingming really could not bring herself to kiss him. Snake saw her hesitation and so pinched her little chin and pecked her on the mouth, saying, "You should fight for your own benefits." Gu Mingming was dazzled by Snake's smile. How could there be such a good-looking person in this world? He was so exquisite that he seemed like a character that only existed in cartoons. And he was her boyfriend. Because of Snake, Gu Mingming had even forgotten to check her own results. The preparatory bell had already rung, and Snake pulled Gu Mingming's hand into the classroom. The morning breeze carried the scent of books around them. As Snakel was too dazzling, Gu Mingming could not see anything else apart from him. She just let herself be led by him into the classroom in a daze and sat at the back near the corner. She spent the entire lesson in a daze, with waves of numbness coming from her palms. Until the end of the lesson, someone stood at the door and shouted, "Gu Mingming, there's a guy at the school entrance looking for you." Looking for me? Gu Mingming was quite surprised. Who would come to school to look for her? But Snake was focused on another important point. Male. Gu Mingming shook her head, indicating that she did not know either. Snake hugged Gu Mingming's shoulders and said, "Since you don't know, you don't have to bother about it." Gu Mingming felt that it was not a good idea, but when she said that she wanted to go take a look, Snake's face was so cold that ice could form, so she could only give up. But halfway through the second lesson, the faculty head suddenly knocked on the door and waved at Gu Mingming, saying, "Gu Mingming, come out for a while." Chapter 1292. At the end of the school corridor, there was a man standing by the window. His back was hunched, and he looked a little down and out. Gu Mingming was stunned for a long time. She did not go near or leave. She just stood there as if the whole world had stopped. The blood in her body froze, and her hands were frighteningly cold. Snake frowned and looked at Gu Mingming, asking, "What's wrong? Are you not feeling well?" Gu Mingming's teeth could not stop chattering, and her pupils were shaking violently. She bit her lower lip tightly and could not say a word. She just stared straight at the man in front of her. The master of the school left after exchanging a few words with the man. The man walked to Gu Mingming and glanced at Snake, who was holding hands with Gu Mingming. He smiled and said, "Mingming, aren't you going to introduce him to your father?" "There's no need." Gu Mingming's voice was trembling. She could not tell if it was from fear or hatred. "Nonsense." The man put on a stern face and said with the air of a father, "I am your father. Shouldn't you inform me that you have a boyfriend?" "Father? Ha! When she was 3 years old, she divorced her mother because the woman she had an affair with got pregnant. In order to monopolize the property, he fought for custody and forced her mother to leave the family with nothing. Her mother chose to give in so that she could receive better care. In the end, the third party gave birth to a daughter the next year. This man who called himself father started to beat and kick Gu Mingming, saying that she was unlucky and caused the son in the third party's womb to become a daughter. Then the third party sent Gu Mingming's mother a photo of Gu Mingming being beaten till she was on the brink of death. He threatened that if she did not bring this burden away, the child who ran around randomly might get into a car accident again. Her mother's heart ached for Gu Mingming, and she brought her away without a care in the world. Since then, this man whom she had never seen again was now using the air of a father to ask her why she did not tell him that she had a boyfriend. Gu Mingming did not want to talk to him, not even a single word. She turned to leave, but the man growled behind her. "Is this the lesson that your incompetent mother taught you? Not answering your elders' questions and leaving just like that?" Gu Mingming bit her lower lip and did not say a word. Her mind was blank, and she could not think of anything. She just wanted to stay further away from this man. Snake frowned. He did not like people treating Gu Mingming with such an attitude. In Gu Mingming's memory, this man called Daddy had never appeared from the age of 4 until she transmigrated to the beast world, so Snake did not take him seriously. After all, although he had hurt Gu Mingming, from a certain point of view, this man had an indelible contribution for Gu Mingming to appear in front of him. But now, from the looks of it, ever since Snake snatched Gu Mingming's love letter, the trajectory of her life had started to deviate. She would no longer transmigrate to the beast world to meet Elvis and Leah, but she would have to face the many malicious intents that this world had placed on her. Gu Mingming pulled Snake into the female washroom. Just as she was about to close the door, she realized that Snake was also there. Without saying a word, she just pushed Snake away a little before locking the toilet door from the inside. She curled up on the toilet bowl and hugged her knees as she cried her heart out. Chapter 1293. That man had not left yet. Seeing Gu Meng Meng running away, he even chased her to the entrance of the female toilet. He had been so aggressive as if he wanted to rush in and beat Gu Meng Meng up, but was blocked by Snake at the entrance. Without saying a word, Snake grabbed him by the neck. The hand that could hold a basketball with one hand grabbed the man's swollen neck and lifted upwards. The man's back rubbed against the wall, and his feet gradually left the ground. "My woman is crying. Looks like it's all your fault." A pair of dark green eyes shone with a cold light, exuding a sinister aura that did not match his age. The corners of his lips were clearly curled upwards, but it was like the lines of the Grim Reaper's scythe, exuding an arc that could take one's life. "You really have the guts to easily do something that even I don't dare to do." The man did not doubt that the green-eyed man in front of him would really strangle him to death. He struggled with all his might, but to no avail. He grabbed onto Snake's wrist tightly to fight for a bit of breathing space and said with his choked throat, "Murder is against the law." But Snake laughed, tilted his head, and asked. She disappeared from the world after she was 4 years old, hiding like a mouse in the gutter to avoid the $500 of child support every month. "Suddenly, you came knocking on my door? Wasn't it because you found out my identity that you pounced on me like a stray dog that smelled meat?" Snake slowly approached the man and narrowed his eyes. "You know, right? I am the royal family of F country and have the title of a prince. As long as I say that you attacked me and I killed you in self-defense." "Do you think the diplomats of your country will instigate a conflict between the two countries because of you, or hand over your mistress and illegitimate child to me for me to slaughter?" "I am her father." In the end, the man could only say these 4 words in a staccato manner. Snake snorted coldly and loosened his grip, causing the man to fall onto the ground with a thud. Then he lay there panting heavily and coughing violently. Snake looked down at the man from above and said coldly, "If you are sincerely apologizing and coaxing her to be happy and acknowledge you as her father, I don't mind spending some money to give her a facade of familial harmony. Unfortunately, you're too stupid. You've wasted the title of future father-in-law. Let me tell you, unless she takes the initiative to find you, otherwise you will continue to hide in the gutter and be your rat. If she shed another tear, I'll let you see what the world looks like after dark. Get lost." The last word was said in a low voice. The man seemed to have been pardoned and scrambled away. Meanwhile, Snake entered the female bathroom and first turned on the tap to wash his hands. Then he knocked on the door of the cubicle Gu Meng Meng was in and said, "Even if the sky falls, there's still me. If you want to cry, cry in my arms. Let me be alone for a while, sob sob. I beg you." Gu Meng Meng tried her best to suppress her sobs. She also felt very useless. They were strangers whom she had only met once in more than 10 years. But she was crying like this after just one meeting, and he did not say anything overboard. It seemed like she was making a mountain out of a molehill. But that stranger whom she had not seen for more than 10 years was her father. Chapter 1294. Seeing that Gu Meng Meng wasn't going to open the door, Snake knew that there was no point in trying to persuade her. So he took 2 steps back, ran up, and jumped up. With one hand on the door frame, he flipped over and jumped in. Without another word, he hugged Gu Meng Meng in his arms and said helplessly, "For you, I have done all sorts of embarrassing things. If others see the CEO of Monsieur Company climbing over the walls of the female toilet, tomorrow's headlines will probably be all about me." Gu Meng Meng's tears turned into laughter at Snake's teasing. Her tears were still on her face, but she still laughed out loud. Snake held Gu Meng Meng's face gently and said while wiping away her tears, "TSK, you were already ugly, but now that you're crying, you're even uglier." Gu Meng Meng was stunned. She immediately covered her face with both hands and said, "That's why I told you not to come in. Let me be alone for a while." Which girl didn't want to maintain their best image in front of the person they liked? especially when the other party was someone as perfect as Snake. Even if she tried her best, she would not be able to match up to him. Now that she was crying so badly, she was even more unworthy of him. Gu Mingming was actually very bothered by Snake's disdain. But Snake grabbed her hands and placed them on the back of his waist. Then, he went downstairs and pulled Gu Mingming into his arms. He supported the back of her head with one hand and pressed it against his chest. He smiled and said, "Let you be alone? That won't do. If you can't even lean against my chest when you cry, then what's the point of having me as your boyfriend? But ugly, you'll despise me. No matter how ugly you are, you're still my woman." Snake kissed the top of Gu Mingming's head and said, "So, I will despise you while loving you more." Gu Mingming's heart melted. She hugged Snake in his arms and slowly calmed her emotions. The bell signaling the end of class rang, and the female students walked in groups of 2s and 3s. Snake wanted to go out, but was stopped by Gu Mingming. If she were to walk out of the ladies' toilet with Snake in such a situation, who knew what kind of indecent rumors would spread about them? Did you see Gu Mingming's results? She's ranked 429th. There are only 450 people in the entire cohort, and she's actually ranked 429th? The girl's tone was full of ridicule. Gu Mingming blushed. In the morning, she had been staring at Snake's name in a daze and did not notice her own results. That's right. She wondered what Snake saw in her. He doesn't look outstanding, doesn't speak well, doesn't have a family background, and even his studies are a mess. What kind of results are those? Even if you made a mistake and chose C, you shouldn't have gotten this result, right? Maybe he's a top student? Otherwise, how could he perfectly avoid all the correct answers? I was pretending to be dumb on purpose so that I could get closer to Snake. "Senior, I don't know how to answer this question. Can you please teach me?" The girls purposely pinched their throats and used an artificial voice to imagine Gu Mingming and Snakel's conversation, before bursting into laughter outside. Gu Mingming bit her lower lip and did not say a word. Snake, on the other hand, could not take it anymore. He directly pushed open the door and walked out. He stared coldly at the gaping girls and said, "What does my Tuming's results have to do with you?" In an instant, the female toilet seemed to have frozen over. Everyone froze and even stopped breathing in shock. Chapter 1295. The white mist gradually gathered. The beast deity sighed and said, "It's all right. I am your real father." Gu Mingming now understood why the beast deity treated Elvis that way from the start. She also understood why he kept emphasizing that he would back her up. It was because he was afraid that she would break down when she saw the scene of her father knocking on her door in that world. Did he feel wronged? Actually, there was still a little. So when that Gu Mingming was crying in the toilet, this Gu Mingming was also crying in Elvis's arms. Perhaps she still had some expectations for kinship. Yes. Gu Mingming did not want more people to worry for her, so she forced a smile and calmed herself down. After taking a few deep breaths, Gu Mingming felt that she had adjusted her state of mind. Then, she smiled at the beast deity. "Father, I've finished watching the television series. Where's my pocket money?" The beast deity stroked Gu Mingming's hair dotingly and indulgently. "Say it. What do you want to ask?" Gu Mingming chuckled and pointed at the red spider lily on Elvis's chest, saying, "After I returned from the Mecca Desert, I seem to have forgotten something. I clearly obtained the heart of the desert, and I'm very sure that I obtained it non-violently, but I just can't remember." The beast deity smiled and said, "The person you have forgotten is someone who does not belong to the beast world. It's useless to remember. As long as the result is good, it's fine." Gu Mingming understood that no one would be able to get the beast deity to reveal anything he did not want to, so she did not persist and only said, "Then, Father, do you know who the great lord that Gregory mentioned is?" The beast deity nodded and replied, "It was one of Wang Xiaoxin's partners. He guarded a path for her to return home for 1,000 years after her death. His identity was special. He was born heartless, so although they were partners, Wang Xiaoxin did not have his mark on her. As a result, many people thought that he was a male that was abandoned by Wang Xiaoxin, but that was not the case. He was a natural stray beast, a transcendent existence in the beast world. How should I put it? Oh, that's right. Let me quote a line from a movie I watched 2 days ago. It's if he becomes Buddha, there will be no demons in the world. If he becomes a demon, there will be nothing Buddha can do. So powerful? The great sage, heaven's equal? Gu Meng Meng instinctively replied. The beast god nodded and chuckled. You can say that. Because I don't have a heart, I don't have any concept of good and evil, right and wrong. Everything I do is based on my whims. In his entire life, he only liked Wang Xiaoxin. Oh, then the engagement between the vulture tribe and him. The beast deity chuckled as he glanced at Elvis. Then he retracted his gaze and said, Wang Xiaoxin from 1,000 years ago. I guess that you would be the successor as the messenger of the beast deity 1,000 years later. I also guessed that you would go to the Mecca desert to retrieve the heart of the desert. But I didn't expect that you wouldn't use the heart of the desert on yourself. But Gu Mengmeng face-bombed and said, so Wang Xiaoxin wanted to arrange my marriage 1,000 years ago and introduce a birdman to be my husband, right? Chapter 1296. So that's the case. No wonder Gregory behaved like a foolishly loyal general when he mentioned that great lord. So he is indebted to him. As Gu Mengmeng spoke, she looked up at the beast deity and said, but what do we do now? Gregory refused to bring me up the Moda Mountains. Dad, do you have something like an anywhere door? Can you send me straight to the top of the mountain? The beast deity smiled helplessly. I'm the beast deity, not Doryman. Gu Mengmeng hung her head and said, but Gregory said that Moda Mountains are extremely difficult to climb. Father, why don't you watch over me when I climb, and catch me if I fall off? Gu Mengmeng lowered her head. The beast deity was speechless. He looked at Gu Mengmeng and shook his head with a bitter smile. Child, why can't you understand? Gu Mengmeng was confused by his evaluation. The beast deity asked, Kiss of the ocean, what did you get? Pearl. Anything else? The beast god asked patiently. Gu Mengmeng thought for a while, and her eyes lit up. Snake venom. The beast deity nodded and asked, Soul of the forest, what did you obtain? Snake blood. The beast deity gave a mysterious smile and glanced at Elvis. Then, the heart of the desert, whose heart is it? Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. Wills? The beast deity nodded approvingly. You are worth teaching. Gu Mengmeng seemed to have thought of something, but she did not really understand it. It felt like she just could not grasp the main point. The beast deity rubbed Gu Mengmeng's little head and said, It's all right, don't worry too much. You will naturally understand when you gather all 7 treasures. What do you mean? Gu Mengmeng was confused. The beast deity was silent for a moment before he said, I think that fellow Gregory is actually not bad. If you like him, you might as well accept him. If she didn't have any feelings for him, as long as she didn't hate him, she could stay and interact with him. But if you really don't like it, then forget about the engagement from 1,000 years ago. There will always be a way out. Even if there is no way out, you still have your father, right? Gu Mengmeng thought about it and agreed. She did not harp on a matter of Moda Mountains anymore and continued to ask, Dad, actually, there's something else I want to ask. Huh? The beast deity did not seem surprised. He just looked at Gu Mengmeng calmly, waiting for her to speak. Gu Mengmeng said, Ever since I returned from the Mecca desert, the stray beasts seem to be very afraid of me. Even little shit. Even Wabi started to hide from me and tremble when they see me. The beast deity chuckled. What do you think will happen to the wolf beasts if you kill Elvis? Gu Mengmeng's face was filled with shock. What kind of example is that? I won't murder my husband. The beast deity smiled and shook his head. All right, let's put it another way. If another powerful beast king killed Elvis, what do you think the wolf beast would do? Gu Mengmeng blurted out, Revenge. The beast deity shook his head and said, No, they will retreat and flee upon hearing the news. Gu Mengmeng froze. So, father, you mean that I killed the leader of the stray beasts? I killed Cole in the Mecca desert? The beast deity laughed contemptuously. How is Cole the leader of the stray beasts? It was just a flea. You killed an extremely important person. Gumaming's face fell. She felt an inexplicable fear towards something that she had no memory of. Chapter 1297. Gu Mingming felt that the beast deity's words did not comfort her at all. Strictly speaking, there were 3 people who had died in her hands in the beast world. The first was Nina. She had ordered him to be killed, and she did not regret it. The second was Snake. She did not kill him, but he had died for her. After that, she gained 1,000 years of memories for no reason. This memory tormented her until she was mentally and physically exhausted. The third was, who was it? He had died in her hands. From what the beast deity said, she had done it herself. But she had no recollection of it at all. It was the complete opposite of what happened to Snake. Who the hell would do good every day be killing people? The beast deity patted Gu Mingming's shoulder. Living a little longer may be a blessing, but living for too long is a form of punishment. It was the same for Snake. It is the same for that person. You ended their lives. To them, it is a form of release. If one day you recall what happened then, you will know that I will not lie to you. Gu Mingming knew that there was no point in being distressed. She could only sigh in resignation. Father, what should we do now? Wabi-Ai is always afraid of me. The beast deity squatted down and looked into Gu Mingming's eyes. Very simple. Give him a drop of your blood, and he will not be afraid of you. Gu Mingming looked at the beast deity doubtfully. Just like that. The beast deity nodded. Yeah, just like that. Don't you know? Deities cannot lie. Gu Mingming nodded with a smile. All right, father. I will go back first. I took too long this time. I am afraid Leah will be worried. The beast deity kissed Gu Mingming's forehead with a smile. Be good and go back. I will watch some good television dramas during this period of time. I will learn how to deal with my son-in-law. With that, the beast deity turned to smile at Elvis. You are welcome to accompany Gu Mingming back to her home again. Then it was a free fall. Gu Mingming was already used to this feeling of falling. But Elvis was clearly very nervous. He hugged Gu Mingming tightly the entire time, as if he was afraid that Gu Mingming would be blown away by the wind. Opening his eyes suddenly, he saw that Gu Mingming was still in his arms, and his heart slowly calmed down. Gu Mingming was already used to switching back and forth, so she was not in a hurry to get up. She first opened her eyes to adjust to the light, before slowly sitting up. Leah had already prepared a cup of water and placed it in front of Gu Mingming. He watched her drink while saying to Elvis, "Let me carry you. You should also drink some water to moisten your throat." Elvis's throat was extremely dry, so he did not reject and handed Gu Mingming over to Leah, while he went to the side of the water tank to scoop up some water and gulped it down. Where's Wabi-Ai? The first thing Gu Mingming asked was little shit. She wanted to quickly resolve the matter of little shit being afraid of her. Leah kissed Gu Mingming's forehead and said, "It's hanging on the tree outside the house. He doesn't dare to come in and is worried about me taking care of the two of you alone, so he has been guarding the door." Gu Mingming said, "Ask him to come in. I have a way to solve the problem of him being afraid of me." Leah chuckled and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Mingming, Mingming, what happened to you?" Chapter 1298. Gu Mingming ignored the fight between Wabi-Ai and Leah. She quickly bit her finger and poked it into Wabi-Ai's mouth. Wabi-Ai jumped in fright and turned to look at Gu Mingming in shock. He had no idea what was going on, but when a faint sweetness spread through his mouth, Wabi-Ai's eyes widened and his body stiffened. He took a step back and pointed at Gu Mingming. You! I didn't bite you." Gu Mingming looked at him, retreating to the corner of the wall, looking like a servant girl who had been forced by her husband. She couldn't help but laugh. "Hey, little shit, come here." "I won't." Wabi-Ai crossed his arms and glared at Gu Mingming. He had never imagined that he would taste Gu Mingming's blood one day. How was he going to explain this to Snake? He had promised to protect her, but now there was her blood in his mouth. There was no way he could explain this. Gu Mingming patiently said gently, "Try to come closer to me. Come on." Wabi-Ai shook his head and resisted with all his might. Gu Mingming's face darkened. You seem to have forgotten that I am the Snake King. Yes. Ever since the mark on the back of Gu Mingming's neck changed from Snake's personal protection mark to the family's protection mark, Gu Mingming was the new Snake King. But she had ordered the Snake Clan to continue living in the Snake King Valley and didn't have to serve her. So she wasn't surrounded by huskies like Elvis. Wabi-Ai was taken aback. He said reluctantly, TSK, you even learned how to bully the snake. Gu Mingming couldn't keep up her gentle facade. She arched one leg and rested her arm on her knee. She crooked her finger. Since you know I am bullying the snake, hurry over. Why must I use my status as the Beast King to suppress you? TSK, hurry up. Wabi-Ai dawdled over to Gu Mingming with a look of disdain. I have to come over just because you asked me to. Do I not want my face? Just you wait. When I break through the Beast King bloodline, I will kill you. Gu Mingming stood up from the bed and jumped high to hook her arms around Wabi-Ai's neck. You dare to talk back to me like this? Looks like you are really not afraid of me, right? Wabi-Ai was also taken aback by Gu Mingming's words. He turned around abruptly to look at her, his hands clutching her shoulders in a death grip from the agitation. The corners of his mouth widened until his 2 rows of pearly white teeth were all exposed to the guests. Gu Mingming, I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of you. Gu Mingming was about to fall apart from Wabi-Ai's shaking. She felt so dizzy and nauseous. Sigh, it hurts. Gu Mingming raised her hand and slapped Wabi-Ai's head. Wabi-Ai was sent flying into the corner of the wall. Gu Mingming rubbed her shoulder, which had turned red from Wabi-Ai's grip, as she slowly walked over. She squatted beside Wabi-Ai and smiled from the bottom of her heart. She reached out a hand in front of Wabi-Ai. Welcome back. Wabi-Ai reached out to hold Gu Mingming's little hand. He didn't stand up, but just pulled her into his arms with all his might. He couldn't calm his emotions as his throat tightened and his entire body trembled uncontrollably. Chapter 1299. Gu Mingming allowed Wabi-Ai to hug her with all his might, like a willful child hugging a toy he had lost and found. There is no hint of intimacy between a man and a woman, just the fear of losing a friend or even a relative. Little shit, thank you for being afraid of losing me, and thank you for coming back, but my waist is about to break. Can't you be a little gentler? Not only did Wabi-Ai not loosen his grip, he hugged her even more tightly. He laughed out loud. Gentle my ass. I will be the Snake King if I strangle you to death. Scram. Gu Mingming raised her hand to give Wabi-Ai another slap, causing him to fall to the ground. Wabi-Ai sprawled on the ground, twitching, not even lifting his face. Gu Mingming felt a little guilty. Are you serious? Did you become epileptic from being beaten? Wabi-Ai shook his head, but didn't say a word. Gu Mingming squatted there in confusion. She poked Wabi-Ai with a finger and asked worriedly, Did I hit you too hard? Are you all right? Scram, don't bother me. Let me lie here for a while. Gu Mingming was taken aback. Damn, why did he sound like he was crying? She grabbed Wabi-Ai's hair and lifted his head up. Gu Mingming looked at Wabi-Ai in shock. A little shit, you are actually crying. I am not crying. Don't you slander me. Since he had already been seen, Wabi-Ai didn't bother burying his face anymore. He pulled Gu Mingming back into his arms. I thought I would never be able to fight with you again in this lifetime. Gu Mingming's heart warmed. She hugged Wabi-Ai back and gently patted his back. If he continued to be so afraid of her and hide far away from her, he would never be able to fight with her again. There was a relationship that was forged through fighting. The more they fought, the better the relationship would be. This relationship was called Wabi-Ai and Gu Mingming. Wabi-Ai started feeling awkward after he calmed down. He had lived for 800 years and was second only to Snake in the beast world in terms of being feared by others. But he was actually beaten to tears by a little female, although Gu Mingming's family of 3 did not mention this matter. The way Leah and Elvis looked at him was really enough. Wabi-Ai raised half his body and rushed towards Elvis. Little wolf, I heard that you have become a beast king. Come and fight with me to loosen up my muscles. Elvis waved his hand. The wild wolves that were baring their teeth and about to pounce on Wabi-Ai suppressed the low growls coming from their throats and maintained a posture that was ready to leap and attack at any moment. They took 2 steps back, but their eyes were still fixed on Wabi-Ai, guarding against his every move. Elvis carried Gu Meng Meng and said, "I can't fight with you now." "Why?" Wabi-Ai was displeased. Elvis tidied the stray hair on Gu Meng Meng's forehead and said, "If I accidentally kill you, Xiao Meng will be upset. I won't do anything that will upset Xiao Meng." Wabi-Ai narrowed his eyes and flashed his poisonous fangs. Was he being looked down upon by this little wolf? Right. He swung his snake tail at Elvis without using any strength. Elvis leaped backwards easily and did not get angry. He just said softly, "Those wooden barrels over there are filled with Xiao Meng's grape wine. Xiao Meng will definitely be angry if you ruin it." Wabi-Ai's tail forcefully stopped a step away from the barrel. He turned around and sneered. "Fight with me, or I will ruin this broken barrel." Chapter 1300. Wabi-Ai gritted his teeth. "Little wolf pup, you have been corrupted." This couple was actually using the same trick to threaten him. Damn it. They were both beast kings and were more powerful than him. He was the one being bullied all the time. She sighed. The truth was nothing in Snake's eyes. As long as Gu Meng Meng opened her mouth, even if she said fishes were flying in the sky and birds were swimming in the water, Snake would never hesitate to believe her. Elvis smiled. "Thank you for your compliment." While Gu Meng Meng was settling Wabi-Ai's matter, Leah had already prepared a pot of food. He called Gu Meng Meng and Elvis out to eat. Besides Gu Meng Meng's family of 3, there was also Wabi-Ai, Ian, Gregory, and the unshakable Oriton. Because of Gregory's presence, no one mentioned anything about the news Gu Meng Meng had received from the beast deity. After all, Gregory was not one of them. Although he liked Gu Meng Meng, he was not someone who could share information with Wabi-Ai, Ian, and Oriton. Gu Meng Meng asked as she ate, "How long did I sleep this time?" Lee's gaze drifted to Gregory. 5 days. 5 days, Gu Meng Meng nodded. "Gregory, so you are leaving today?" Gregory's chest tightened. He nodded with much difficulty. Actually, there was a moment when he almost blurted out that his injuries had not healed and he wanted to stay for 2 more days to recuperate. But the males of the vulture tribe had an inextinguishable pride in their bones. Although Gu Meng Meng had pushed him a little too hard that day, he had recovered after recuperating for 3 days. He was unwilling to show weakness in front of Gu Meng Meng, and even more unwilling to lie to her. "So, have you thought of a reason to convince me to bring you up the mountain?" Gregory's gaze deepened. His seemingly calm eyes hid a surging anticipation. Gu Meng Meng shook her head. Her gaze landed on Elvis's chest. She smiled. "The marriage agreement between the vulture tribe and that great lord seems to be impossible to fulfill. I met with that lord, and he asked me to tell you that the engagement is over. From today onwards, the leader of your vulture tribe is free to marry. You don't have to guard that engagement to the death and be lonely for the rest of your lives." Gregory's face carried a tinge of disappointment and desolation. To the vulture tribe, that engagement was a promise, but also a shackle. Now that it had been undone, he did not feel as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Could he pursue Gu Meng Meng now that he was no longer engaged? But why didn't he feel the slightest bit of joy? I understand now. The difficulties between him and her had never been because of that engagement. He was about to leave, and she didn't even try to stop him. He was prepared. No matter how ridiculous her excuse was, as long as she revealed even the slightest desire for him to stay or for him to take her away, he would agree. However, she actually shook her head so calmly and even gave him a release, allowing him to marry freely. "You don't want the love of the sky?" Gregory asked softly. Gu Meng Meng smiled and said, "Yes, of course. Without that thing, my man won't let me bear children." Gregory felt as if his heart had been sliced by a small knife. So she had put in so much effort to find the love of the sky, just so she could bear children for her partner. Chapter 1301. Gregory felt that he should turn around and fly back to the Moda Mountains in a carefree manner, leaving Gu Mingming with a proud and aloof back view and an aloof image. As long as he left, she would never be able to ascend the Moda Mountains and obtain the love of the sky. She would also not be able to bear the children of those two males. It was a childish idea, but Grace just couldn't suppress the sour taste that kept bubbling up in her heart. But thinking was just thinking. He could not spread his wings. He clearly wanted to say, "Then I will leave," but when he opened his mouth, he said, "Then how do you intend to ascend the mountain?" Gu Mingming held her cheek and thought for a while. Then she shook her head and said, "I have not thought about it yet. Things will eventually sort themselves out. If there is really no other way, I will summon the beasts in the beast world to accompany me to be a foolish old man and dig out the mountain." Gregory's gaze froze, and he asked softly with a frown, "You are serious?" Gu Mingming chuckled and said, "Of course not serious." She took the rice from Elvis and swallowed it after chewing a few times. Then she said, "I know what the Moda Mountains mean to the birch tribe. How can I destroy the mountain for my own selfish desires? I was just saying it casually. Don't take it seriously." Gregory's gaze dimmed for a moment. Actually, he wanted to say that if Gu Mingming was serious, then he would have a reason to give in. For the sake of the bird tribe, he could lower his head and say, "I will bring you up the mountain. Don't destroy the Moda Mountains." With such a dignified reason, would he be able to cover up his dirty and selfish thoughts and stay by her side for a few more days? Gregory laughed bitterly in his heart. He did not expect that he would become so despicable in just a month's time. "Then, I'll be going." Saying goodbye, Gregory sat on the same spot without moving an inch. Gu Mingming said, "Wait a moment." Gregory's eyes brightened instantly, and he could not hide his anticipation when he looked at Gu Mingming. Gu Mingming turned around and returned to the stone castle. She took out a beautiful feather fan and handed it to Gregory. She said, "I promise you that I will give you the first fan. Treat it as a parting gift. I wish you a pleasant journey." Gregory's fingertips felt slightly cold. He took the fan from Gu Mingming, and his eyes that had just lit up dimmed again. He nodded and said, "Thank you." In the end, she did not ask him to stay. Even though he knew that she needed him to go to Moda Mountains, she still let him go without hesitation. He had emphasized time and again that only the tribe leader of the vulture race would descend the mountain after receiving the Lord's notice. Now that the Lord was no longer around, he would be the last person to descend the mountain. He was her only hope to ascend the mountain. He had already said that he was important enough, but in her eyes, he was still as light as a feather. She even broke off the marriage contract, which blocked his excuse to go down the mountain again. What did she say last time? This fan was so beautiful. In the future, if he gave it to a female he liked, he might be able to get a wife back to Moda Mountains. But what could he do? The wife he wanted to abduct back to Moda Mountains did not seem to care about this fan, so she easily gave it to him as a parting gift. Goodbye. Gregory's gaze landed on Gu Mingming's face, and he could only say these two words in the end. "Yeah, goodbye." Gu Mingming waved goodbye to Gregory and did not say anything about asking him to stay. You're tuning into the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.